throw. One-on-one, Davis has it. Touchdown! Carolina wins! Carolina is the Coastal Division champion! Javonte Williams to the left of Howell. He'll send him out into the flat right side. Howell looking, standing tall, lets it go, man there! Touchdown! Touchdown, Carolina! The pistol, Jackson behind him. Hands off to Jackson, he tried to jump pass, and it's intercepted! Surratt intercepts it! Holy cow, Carolina's gonna win! And off to Javonte Williams again, pops it to the left. Javonte leaps over a man, crosses the 50, trucks over a defender, spins by another. Goodness gracious! He's down to about the 15, and he did absolutely everything in one carry.
Here's the shotgun snap to Aguilar. Drops back, pressure coming. Aguilar floats it up, incomplete! No flags! Head on back up the mountain! Carolina wins it in double overtime! Loftus, out of the shotgun, throws to the end zone. Incomplete! Incomplete! The bell belongs to us! Carolina wins it 47-45 in double overtime!
Bernard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Gio at the 35. Gio, he's at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Gio is going to take it for a touchdown. Are you kidding me?
What's going on, guys? Welcome into another edition of the Heel Tough Blog Podcast. It's your host, Anthony Pagnotta, as always, and just wanted to give you a little bit extra time to think about some of those moments right there. Most of them, all but the first one, created by the man that Carolina, unfortunately, had to fire today as they move on into the next chapter of the Tar Heel football program. That's right, Mack Brown, released from his duties officially earlier today. The conversation supposedly taking place on Monday, according to the release from athletic director Bubba Cunningham. And so we're here to break this down. What do we think about the choice to let go of Mack Brown, the timing of it, and, you know, where does Carolina sort of go from here? Because I think that's the biggest question that a lot of people have. But yeah, you can't go into talking about that without talking about the man that is leaving behind this job. Truly one of the icons, one of the best coaches that we have seen in the history of the sport. He is a Hall of Famer. He came back to the sidelines. He was a Hall of Famer even before then. And he's a guy that I truly believe, you know, for Carolina fans, he will be one of the ones that will be remembered forever. I know that we are hoping that there is a guy that ends up coming in and taking this program to heights that they haven't even been to just yet. But that's far, far from a guarantee at this point. So the hope is that they can even recreate what we saw from Mack Brown in his time in Chapel Hill. Let's just start with, first of all, the legacy that Mack Brown leaves behind. You're talking about a guy that won a national championship in one of the most unprecedented upsets that you will ever see in college football. That was a team that was given zero chance to win that national title game. Very similar to, if you guys remember, it always felt like, looking back on that time, that was a team that was talked about in a very similar realm to the New York Giants in 2007 when they went up, it was in the 2007-2008 season when they go up against the undefeated New England Patriots. That team was given zero chance. And Mack Brown somehow finds a way with Vince Young to win a national championship. And that's a moment that he'll have forever. He led Texas to some of the biggest heights that it had seen in a long, long time. And while he's looked at as a guy that, in the end sort of underachieved a little bit towards the end of his tenure at Texas, I think he's a guy that will be honored for many, many years to come. when it comes to that program. And, of course, the Carolina program, because at Carolina, I mean, he took Carolina to the highest that this program has really ever been. Now, did he win an ACC title? He did not. But he was here during one of the most dominant runs for Florida State. His second time around, the tail end of the dominant run for Dabo Swinney. So when you look at his legacy, what do you look at and see with Mack Brown? Because I see a man that, even with the way that it ended here at Carolina, which, by the way, is not anywhere close to that bad. We're going to address the comment that has already come in that is just pathetic. I don't understand what this person is even thinking. Hopefully this is not a Carolina fan that actually believes this. But first, I mean, what do you think about his legacy and what you'll remember about the man, Mack Brown?
Yeah, he's the best football coach we've ever seen. Roaming the sidelines in Chapel Hill. And they're going to be hard-pressed to find someone that does a better job than he did during his 2 stints on the sidelines. And so that's what makes this so hard, is he was the one guy that tried to consistently elevate a mediocre program and make us believe that we could be something more. And did he fully achieve that? No, but I don't know how many other coaches would have had Carolina at 9-1 2 years ago, 6-1 or 6-0 last year, and being talked about as a playoff contender. We're about to find out. So we're either going to find out if Mack Brown was holding this program back, or did he take it as far as this program can go. So it's bittersweet. I never would have thought I would read a headline that North Carolina fired him, but that's the reality of the situation. And now we're really about to see just how committed to winning Carolina truly is, because with Mack, he made it easier to commit, and the money was at an all-time high, and fan attendance and fan interest was at an all-time high. You recruited the best you've ever recruited with Mack Brown during his 2 stints in Chapel Hill. We're really about to find out if there was something he was doing that he could have done better. And maybe there is someone that can come in here and have that Curt Cignetti type impact on this program and take it to a level that we never thought was possible. But I think there's going to be probably a situation in 3 to 5 years that we'll be looking back and remembering that when we were 9-1 and 6-0, yeah, we didn't finish the way we wanted to finish, but the fact that we were in a position to achieve the type of things that we were in a position to achieve was really special, because at a school that's not known for its football success, he did bring a lot of it during his 2 stints at Carolina.
Well, and one of the other things that I think we need to stress here, no matter how you feel about Mack Brown, I know there are a lot of people that are celebrating today and saying this is exactly what the Tar Heel program needed. This is, too late. I mean, you got this comment right here, fired a year too late, from CJA on YouTube. Could not disagree. I mean, look, I thought at the time last year that would have made sense, but the part that I don't agree with here is, unfortunately, Mack Brown is going to leave this program worse than he inherited it. I mean, are you a moron? Like, honestly, do you function? Do you know how to tie your shoes? Do you watch? Can you see? Or are you like Stevie Wonder? Like, we have no idea. You have to be a complete simpleton to actually believe that that is the truth. Man, this was a program that won 2 games the year before he got here. This program has a chance to still win 8 games this year. And if he does that, that will be the 9th time in 16 seasons that a program at Carolina run by Mack Brown has finished with 8 wins. To think that, you are just insane. I mean, this is a roster that is still full of talent. They are going to lose some this season to the NFL draft. They'll lose some guys to graduation. There is still a lot that is left here. And when you look at, he also brings up the recruiting class. I'm not even going to pull up his comment. He doesn't even deserve the second comment to come on there. His recruiting class is not great this year. Well, first of all, it was supposed to be a smaller class because of how many guys you brought in last year. And this is also what was going to happen if Carolina made this move anyways. Did you really think that guys would have stuck it out if Carolina would have made what at this point is an inevitable move that they were going to end up having to make with losses like a 70-50 loss to James Madison, which, by the way, that was a point where Mack Brown said at that moment that he was going to step away. That was really the point of no return for Mack Brown. Once you said that, I feel like it was on the mind of Bubba Cunningham that you were hopefully going to step down at the end of the season. And then the way that Carolina lost to Boston College. But at the same time, don't get it wrong. This program is not in a bad spot. Not even close. This program, for what we asked of him when he started here, which was just make the job better, is way, way ahead of the program that he inherited. So, I mean, look, when it comes to what happened today, I feel horrible for Mack Brown because I think that he is a guy that deserved to go out on his own terms. But here's the thing. I don't think he was going to go out on his own terms. Now, I think the timing of it is pathetic. That it's a horrible move by Bubba Cunningham. And we were kind of talking through this, going through the timeline. There's a chance that this move was made with Bubba Cunningham not even actually physically in person talking to Mack Brown. I don't remember. I didn't see any tweets from him on Friday night as if he was at the game against Hawaii, but I'm not 100% sure about that. We know he was at the game in Maui last night. We saw him there. We saw him in the crowd. So if he did do this in person, that would have meant that this was an early morning meeting, and then he proceeded to get on a flight and head out to Maui, which is about an 8-hour flight. The timing doesn't really line up great, especially when you go and look at the timing of Mack Brown's press conference yesterday, where it did not seem like he had just been through a conversation with Bubba Cunningham about that. He basically said, my plan is to return. He fielded multiple questions about that and answered them as if he was going to be back. So I think we kind of both agree that maybe this ultimately would have been the right move, especially after what happened against Boston College. But the timing of this could not have possibly been worse from Bubba Cunningham, the athletic director at Carolina.
Yeah, this is going to be something that I think will stick in the craw for a lot of Carolina fans. Look, we know the report came out that he was offered an opportunity to step down, and he declined. Okay, stubborn Mac. You get through the week and make this announcement at the press conference on Saturday evening, win, lose, or draw against NC State. And then, you once you really start tying in the fact that he's in Hawaii for the week at Maui. And look, I know we live in a world where we interview coaches and all stuff over Zoom and FaceTime. Mack Brown deserved to be, if he was going to be fired in person. Mm-hmm. We can't confirm that it did not happen, but with the way that this is all transpired, it's hard to imagine that conversation was had in person. So, look, a lot of people are anti-Bubba Cunningham people. I'm not one of those guys. Mm-hmm. He has the best athletic department in college athletics from top to bottom. You look at what Carolina basketball has done, retirement Roy Williams, very good, although that hire out of his control. You look at Carolina Olympic sports and what they do in women's athletics. They are the standard. And then you look at some other sports as well that, baseball, Carolina has come off a trip to the World Series. But he has to get this hire right. This was always going to be the most important hire because this is the one that is directly his. And so, he got it right in terms of firing Larry Fedora. He got it right in hiring Mack Brown. Now he's got to make sure he hires the right guy to succeed Mack Brown. And I guess if you were a Carolina guy that wanted Mack Brown fired, you probably loved the fact that he didn't let Mack Brown go out on his own terms, something that I think Mack Brown had earned the right to. And maybe this means that Bubba has a big move up his sleeve and is going to do what he needs to do to make sure this program doesn't lose all the ground that it's gained in the last 6 years. But nonetheless, there was a better way to go about this as opposed to having it be known on the Tuesday before the final game of the year because, they could send out all the thank yous that they want. How do you honor this guy on Saturday when you technically fired him? Like that's my thing. The biggest reason why I want to be in Keenan on Saturday is to be able to honor my favorite football coach and honor the guy that brought me my best memories as a Carolina football fan. How do we do that when we technically fired him on 5 days before the final game? And so the best way to go out and honor Mack Brown is to beat NC State. Hopefully this team can rally behind him one more time. But after the performance they gave you on Saturday, it's hard to believe that. And it's just going to make for one of the more awkward settings I think we've ever been a part of as Carolina football fans, whether we're at the game or watching the game on Saturday afternoon, because he's not going to get the send-off he had earned or he deserved.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that. I think that's more from the athletic department, though, honestly, because I think as Tar Heel fans, especially the ones that will be in attendance for this game, you can do your part. You can send him off the right way. You can make this basically like a celebratory environment because you would imagine that, a lot of the stuff on the scoreboard during the game will probably be about him. And I would encourage Tar Heel fans to just bring the environment. And when the game is over, even if Carolina loses the game, this is one of those occurrences where you cheer as this team goes off the field. Mainly, you're cheering the guy that is the head coach of this team because he has given you, as you said, some of your most special memories as a Tar Heel fan, especially for some of the older fans who, have been through, everything after Mack Brown 1.0. And then, to have some of those magical moments again during Mack Brown 2.0, I think he deserves the right send-off. And I think that Carolina fans can give that to him. Now, in terms of the game, this is why the timing just does not make any sense at all. And it's why, to be honest with you, you said that, you gave him the opportunity to resign. He chose not to, so then you just wait. I got to be honest. I don't even think Bubba should have had the conversation yet. I get it. That game against Boston College was embarrassing. There is no question about that. And I told you when we talked last night on the podcast, I said this decision for Mack Brown should not be up to Mack Brown. This is a decision that the athletic department is going to have to make because we knew it, man. Mack Brown was going to be stubborn about this. He does not want to admit when it's time to give up. And I got to tell you, I admire that because that's a guy that still thinks that he can do the job. He feels like, especially recruiting wise, that he's still the guy that is doing the best thing for Carolina. And I think the other part of it, he wanted to stick it out for all of these kids that he was promising in these recruiting classes. I will be here till the end of your career. That's just the kind of guy that Mack Brown is. He is a great football coach. He's an even better man. And that's why I think it's just a disgrace that this conversation was even had. This conversation should have happened, even if it happens in the locker room or outside the locker room on Saturday. It would have made more sense than this. But no, we're going to fire you, but we want you to stay on and coach one last game for us. From that perspective, yeah, it is odd because I don't know how the players in the locker room feel. I have no idea. There's a lot of them that are probably angry, a lot of them that probably are not going to stay, that are going to be playing key roles on Saturday. So what type of mindset are they bringing into that game? Are they bringing, hey, we want to fight for Coach Brown, we want him to go out on top? Or are they bringing the thoughts of, let's embarrass this university and just go out and get killed? Who knows what the mindset is for Mack Brown either. I mean, what's he thinking? What's he telling the players? Does he want to win this game going out? These are all questions that honestly you should not be asking the week before the biggest rivalry game of the season. And this is one that's important. I think for Carolina, they've lost 3 in a row in this series. They've been blown out. And I think this is one of those games that you really wanted to have. Even if you have the sense that this could possibly be coming, all you had to do was say, as Bubba Cunningham, look, we will be considering Mack Brown's future in the coming weeks. Whatever. Just put out a statement like that. That gives you a chance to at least have a motivated group come out and play on Saturday. Now, I'm going to tell you, I have no idea what to honestly expect. I think it could go one way or the other. These guys could come out, play incredibly well, and go out with a victory for Mack Brown, one that I think he would deserve more than just about any other victory in his career. Or they could come out and say, let's tank this game, let's embarrass this administration, and it could turn really, really ugly in his final game, which who knows what that ends up being like for the fan base, whether or not they blame Mack Brown or not, which I don't think he deserves.
Yeah, I don't really worry about the players tanking the game on purpose to embarrass the university. You just worry about how do you get the guys to be focused and committed and really be energetic and enthusiastic about getting ready to play on Saturday when you're coming off a game where your team looks satisfied and that they achieved what they wanted to achieve this year by making a bowl game. So it's, like I said, it's going to be odd for someone that was there for his first game back overall, which was a neutral site game against South Carolina, for someone that was back for the first home game in Chapel Hill, which was a night game against Miami. If we're lucky enough to be there on Saturday, those vibes are nowhere near what we're going to feel. This might be a step too far. It'll feel like a funeral in a lot of different ways. And I in my head, I always thought maybe we'd get the chance to celebrate him on the way out, like unlike we were with Roy Williams. I mean, Roy Williams retired during a pandemic where there were 200 people in the Smith Center after his final home game. And when he kissed the floor, I guess we should have been a little bit more open to what that meant. In my head, I always thought we would know when Mack Brown's last day was here, and we'd be able to put together an awesome tribute package and really be able to celebrate all the work he did for this program and the university on and off the field. I just don't know how you do that after you fire him. He's not a bitter man. I think he would be receptive of that. It would just make for an all-around awkward scene. So, Tar Heel football is going to Tar Heel football. It doesn't matter if it's on the field or if it's off the field trying to find their next head coach. They're always going to probably do it the wrong way. And I look at this situation, and while in the long run, is it probably the best for us to move on from past Mack Brown? That answer's probably yes. But if you don't think that this was handled in an incorrect fashion, you gotta question if you have a heart, because this guy poured his heart and soul into this program 2 separate times and did a lot of things that I don't think we'll ever see done in football for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope not. I'm going to take the mindset that that's not what ends up happening, and that Carolina somehow finds a way to hire the right guy moving forward. Ultimately, as I said, I do think it was probably the right move in terms of moving on from him. But you're right. This is what Carolina football always seems to do. Even when they're making the right move, it seems like they somehow make a mistake while making the right move. And that's exactly what this was. Now, what you were talking about there, being able to honor him, a chance to know that it's his last game, whatever, maybe that's what Bubba Cunningham was going for. But I'm sorry, you can't do that when you're firing the guy. And you could say, well, that's on Mack Brown. Mack Brown's got to know that he's got to resign if he's given that opportunity. That just ain't Mack Brown, man. That just isn't how it's going to go. And to be honest with you, I do wonder, did Mack kind of think to himself, if I say no, then maybe he says, oh, look, we're not going to get rid of you then that way. I have no idea. Maybe Mack tried to call his bluff and it didn't end up working out. But yeah, it's certainly, you're right. You do have to feel pretty bad about this. And I'm going to be honest. I've seen a lot of people on Facebook put up the article earlier today. Man, the comments underneath that, I did not think you would see that many people that were up in arms over this because of how many people said it was time. Almost every response that I got was saying the move is right, the timing is terrible, and this is a bad look for Bubba Cunningham. So, yeah, I'm going to tell you, Bubba, you better absolutely nail this hire or they are going to want you out for what you did to Mack Brown. So now the question is what does Carolina actually do moving forward? Because you do have to make a hire here. We knew at some point Carolina was going to have to make a hire. And CJ on YouTube says this is a good year to make the coaching change, though. No other blue blood program is opening. Carolina will be by far the most attractive opening. I think it's possible. I do think that you will see some place that we are not talking about necessarily that will find its way open. I don't think it's going to be Florida. I think we all thought that was a possibility going into the year. The way that they're playing at the end of the season, that team's going to a bowl game. There's zero chance that job is coming open. I know South Carolina early in the year, there were maybe some questions about Shane Beamer, them trying to get out ahead of potentially another Will Muschamp. That is not going to happen. Oklahoma, coming into the other night, I think there were people that were having that conversation. I thought that was a little extreme, especially in their first year in the SEC. But again, people were looking at Brett Venables and saying, well, you weren't exactly great when we were in the Big 12. Now the struggles have carried over to the SEC. But they beat Alabama at home. I would say ruin their college football playoff chances, but that's not even necessarily true because Alabama really on the outside looking in, I mean, they're only 2 spots out of the playoff right now. But I think you look at where things are now and ultimately what Carolina has to do moving forward. I mean, you got to go out and hire a guy that is going to inspire confidence in the program. But I mean, again, with it being this a job that might be at the top of the list, I think you could potentially attract some high-end candidates that maybe earlier in the year you didn't think about. And especially with that's the one advantage that Bubba Cunningham has now. And you better take advantage of it. The fact that you've made this firing now gives you a chance to get out ahead of a team like I think one of the jobs that comes open is Auburn. I think they might be over what Hugh Freeze brings to the table, the way that he's treated the players that are there. Okay, if that job comes open, that job immediately goes to the top. So Carolina's got to be proactive now. And if they are, then they can get a legitimately good candidate in here.
Yeah, one's gonna have to emerge because there isn't that clear cut guy that's out there on the market. There's not a guy at the Group of Five level that I think you'd be willing to hand the program over to while he makes that adjustment to the Power Conference level. You're going to see Dan Mullen's name pop up. I think if that's a name that shows a lot of interest in Carolina, that's a name you have to jump on. And yes, you would be going back to TV to make your hire. That guy took Mississippi State from the bottom of the SEC to number one team in the country and has coached quarterbacks at a high level his entire coaching career. Won at a pretty high level at Florida until he had one bad season and they ran him out of town. So, I think that's a name that's going to be monitoring. I know Josh Pate sent the tweet out today that this job is viewed in a different light than how a lot of people probably think the job is viewed. I do think the job is more attractive now with the commitments that Carolina has made off the field. They've got state-of-the-art facilities, in terms of their locker room, in terms of their indoor practice facility. I think the fan base showed during Mack Brown's second tenure, you put a winner on the field, we will show up. We will support. We will be there. That stadium was full virtually every Saturday for the last 6 years when we were putting a competitive program on the field year in, year out. There is that commitment to the fan base that we are a basketball school first and foremost, and we always will be. But there is a commitment from some older generation of Carolina fans and then guys that are our age that love college football that we want to win. We want to be a factor. We believe in it. And so now you really got to find someone that can, look at Carolina, see the sleeping giant that it is, look at all the in-state recruiting that is at your disposal, where you can build a conference champion, and look at an expanded playoff and see a path where Carolina can be a team that's having the type of years that some of these schools are having, like an Arizona State and some others. So it's going to be interesting. Carolina's got to move quickly to hold on to whatever bit of the recruiting class that they have right now before signing day, but also to get more recruits in and have a chance to compete in the transfer portal. So hopefully Bubba Cunningham is prepared to, yes, cast a wide coaching search, but one that moves in a quick manner to make sure he's bringing the best candidates possible to the table, and in hopes that they get someone that says yes, and that person that says yes can elevate this program from where Mack Brown took it to the last 6 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. I think that the investment in the program is as high as it's ever been. Frankly, you have no choice. With what the world of college athletics, with what you're looking at with realignment, you've got no choice but to be more invested in football, or else you're just going to be a program that eventually we think within a few years is probably going to be left for dead. And when you have a brand as big as Carolina's, they're going to want you. These conferences are going to want you, but they also want an entertaining football program and one that can be competitive. So I think there is an appetite for that here at Carolina. I think you can see it in the frustrations from a lot of fans, but now it's about the booster money being able to back that up and really being able to secure a strong NIL collective. And that's the thing that you need. You need a coach that has a track record of success, to come in and inspire, or it's a young coach that has been very successful where he's been and is a guy that Tar Heel fans really feel like could be the future moving forward. Where I would start, it's simple. There are 3 guys that I have seen people mention or that I have looked at myself that I think are in jobs either in the Big 10 or one in the Big 12 that I think you would contact and make them tell you no. The one that I think clearly stands out, a lot of people have mentioned this name. A lot of people, those people that are angry that Carolina did not end up making this move last offseason, Curt Cignetti would be the first person I would contact. Now, if you're contacting him, you are paying him massive amounts of money. The pitch to him, though, would be, look, you lose a game at Carolina in the ACC, I don't think it's going to kill you the way that it seems like it's going to kill this team at Indiana. There is a very good chance that what you saw tonight with Indiana being ranked 10th in the country, which now has them 11th in the playoff bracket, there's a really good chance they don't end up making the college football playoff field. Now, doesn't matter that their final game of the regular season is against Purdue. That's going to do nothing for them. They'll be shut out of conference championship week. And so that more than likely means you will not be seeing Indiana in the playoff because somebody else will jump them from one of the other conferences. Team like Clemson, who has a tough game against South Carolina, they win that, they'll jump ahead. I believe if Alabama beats Auburn, they would try to find a way to put them in over Indiana as well. At Carolina, I don't know if that ends up happening to you because I think that you look at the ACC and I feel like there are enough teams in this conference where if you were able to stack up enough wins, I don't feel like your strength of schedule will be that low. The other thing is look, man, with Indiana, it is not going to be easy to get back to where they are this year. This is the first time in program history this team has won 10 games. So this would, I mean, you have overachieved there already, and you've set a bar so high that I don't really know if you're even going to be able to live up to that. That would be my pitch to him. He tells you no, it's understandable, makes a lot of sense. You just got paid, whatever. 2 other names that really stick out to me, and a couple of these have been on some of the lists so far. Matt Campbell, the head coach at Iowa State, and PJ Fleck, the head coach at Minnesota. When it comes to Iowa State, it's really simple. Look at the reputation of the Big 12 Conference right now. There is a chance that if enough things were to happen, the Big 12 would not even make the college football playoff. If Tulane has a strong enough finish to the season and jumps over the winner of the Pac-12, that's it. The Pac-12, the Big 12, that's it. The Big 12 is shut out because they take the 6th highest conference champs. So that would be, or the 5 highest conference champs, not 6. That would be a devastating blow for that conference. And the reputation of that conference would be, as bad as it is already, would be even lower. That's an area where Carolina could strike because there is a path for the ACC to potentially get 3 teams in the playoff. It involves, Miami winning this week against Syracuse, then getting beat by SMU, and Clemson taking care of South Carolina. In that case, there's a good chance that you get 3 teams in. So as bad as people have said the reputation of the ACC is, that's a much easier path to be able to get to the playoff than in the Big 12. Same thing with PJ Fleck in the Big 10. Look, man, you've had some special seasons there at Minnesota. You won 11 games there. But that was when there were still divisions and you were in the West Division. Now it's going to be almost impossible for Minnesota to ever make it to the Big 10 championship game. It would take an absolute miracle season for that to happen. This is a better recruiting area. Same thing when it comes to Matt Campbell. And again, the path to the playoff is going to be much easier. Those are the guys that I would say are home run guys that you at least take the chance on. Then you get to that next tier. That's where I have Dan Mullen. Biggest concern for me with Dan Mullen is there were so many red flags at Florida. I mean, you had the recruiting violation which, he talked to a kid that was too young. Maybe that's just, okay, maybe one-time thing, could have been a misunderstanding, whatever. There were a couple of different times at Florida, during his first 2 years there, 5 different players accused of violent acts. That was something that he got heavily criticized for, not having control of his program. Certainly not something you'd want to see at Carolina. And then you have the accusations in a lawsuit that was eventually settled by the university that him and athletic director Scott Strickland at the time were racially discriminating against somebody that was in the football front office. Again, that was something that was settled. Who knows what actually happened with that situation? Those are red flags that if you want Dan Mullen and you look at the success that he's had on the field, that speaks for itself. But Carolina would have to navigate around those. Then you're getting into a tier of guys like mainly group of 5 guys. John Summerall, incredible success. Troy and Tulane. Now, he's only been in coaching for 3 years, but he has led Troy to a share of the conference title in each of his first 2 seasons, then eventually moves on to Tulane, and it looks like there's a good chance he could win that conference. And as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, he could be the one that ends up knocking the Big 12 out of the playoff if his team is able to close out that American Conference Championship. That would be a massive, massive statement, and would certainly be something that would probably catch the eye of a guy like Bubba Cunningham with a job that's open. The other guy that I look at in that realm is Jamie Chadwell, a name that a lot of us around here are probably very familiar with. He was the guy that built Coastal Carolina into the success they are, and now he's doing similar stuff at Liberty. That's a really good football program, and I think that's one that, Carolina should consider. I don't love him nearly as much because I think, you look back at his time at Coastal Carolina, I think, his best year was 2020. I think part of that was due to COVID. I think that certainly helped the program like that at the time. But there are people that really like him and think if he gets the right spot, he could potentially succeed. Then there's a coordinator that really interests me. And I'll have a list of 15 different guys that I think Carolina should consider. That'll be on the website where I'll go even more in depth. But I'm going to cut my list off right here. Glenn Schumann, the defensive coordinator at Georgia. Man, we have been looking for a guy that's going to come in here and turn this Carolina defense around. And man, Jeff Collins has made strides. It's kind of been a roller coaster season for him on that side of the ball. Glenn Schumann, there ain't no question that he's going to come in here and turn this defense around. Now, it would take him maybe a little bit of time to recruit the talent, but that's his focus. And you look at the staffs that he has been on. He has been in coaching 16 years. He has either been on Nick Saban's staff or Kirby Smart's staff. He's won 6 national titles. He's had a bunch of different roles, whether it's been grad assistant, position coaches. He's had an off-the-field role where he's been the director of recruiting. And then eventually he goes to Georgia, part of Kirby Smart's initial staff there, works a couple of position coach spots, and then eventually gets himself to defensive coordinator. So this is a guy that's climbed the ladder. There's reported interest potentially if Carolina is interested in him. I think that could be one of those guys that, yes, it is taking a risk, but when you have a guy that has coordinated 2 defenses that won national championships in 21 and 22, including a defense in 21 that was one of the best defenses you will ever see in the modern era, allowing just 10.2 points per game and 268.5 yards, total yards allowed to opponents. Carolina, there are many years Carolina's allowing that in pass defense. That would be an amazing hire, I think, for Carolina. One with a little bit of risk, but certainly one that would generate some buzz. So, I mean, any of those names, I tried to sell you a little bit on some of those guys. Any of those names besides Dan Mullen interesting you? And the one thing about Mullen that would be interesting, if he was to come in his defensive coordinator during his time at Mississippi State was Jeff Collins. So there's a good chance he could possibly be retained.
Yeah, they're nice names. They're not knock you off your feet names, and that's why I was the biggest proponent of keeping Mack and maybe seeing if you had better names emerge next year. Kurt Cignetti's not leaving Indiana after 1 year because Carolina's not offering a contract that exceeds what he got paid at Indiana. I mean, he got 8 years, $64 million. That's high level money. You were probably talking in a situation where you have to offer him probably 10 years at 8 or more. That's too risky for my liking. I think Matt Campbell is a good football coach. A lot of the things we said about Mack Brown got said about Matt Campbell at Iowa State. When he was supposed to have great years, that team was nowhere to be found. There were years that team was supposed to be a discussion in the playoff. They were out of the running by the end of September.
I mean, he's had 2 losing seasons there. That's it. So I don't know what years those are, but
so I, and I don't know with what he's built at Iowa State. There were other jobs that were offered that are better than Carolina, and he never left for those. It feels like if he leaves Iowa State, he's probably going to the NFL, something that's going to probably be on the table for him in the future. So the defensive coordinator from Georgia, love the track record of success. Don't love who he works under when the way that program operates off the field, and you've got guys street racing like it's Fast and Furious 7. There's a lack of accountability that exists within that Georgia program. I would hate for that to be happening in my program. So as far as I'm concerned, he might be a great football coach. I don't know if he can run a program. So I think the good news is that Carolina is going to have options. And I'll reference the Josh Pate tweet again. If the job is truly viewed better than what most people think it is, then there will be coaches that we don't know of that will make it known they're interested in the gig, that maybe would be a definite upgrade over Mack Brown that could come in and do some things to keep the program where it is right now in the short term, but elevate it into the long term. So, and I think Bubba knows this hire is going to make or break him as Carolina's AD, because he made the decision to fire Mack Brown, and we know how good Mack had it with the boosters. Bubba gets this wrong. Those boosters that are 10 times more upset than we are about today's news. They'll find a way to get rid of Bubba Cunningham. So we're going to find out what our AD is made of as he looks to make a really a third successful football hire in a lot of different ways. So we got out in front of it. These lists are already coming together. You would imagine that he's got his list of candidates and he's starting to do the homework. And hopefully by this time next week, we have a clear case or a clear picture of who are the people in the running for the job. And then we could really reevaluate how we feel about this decision to move on from Mack Brown.
Yeah. And I think, for Carolina, you mentioned it, getting out early here and, having a chance to potentially grab your coach sooner rather than later will be huge. The reason why is because the early signing date for this year is December 4th. So they have pushed it even closer to the end of the season, meaning that you have to have your coach in place and ready to go pretty much at the end of your season. So for Carolina, I guess that's maybe the counterpoint from Bubba Cunningham. I knew they had moved it up. I did not think it was that close to the end of the regular season. But now that's why, honestly, I think you might know who the coach is few hours after Carolina's game is over against NC State. Maybe it's, if they wait, it's that Sunday, at the latest that Monday. But Carolina's going to have to scramble. The transfer portal is going to be huge. And, any news that comes out about the coaching search and everything like that, we're going to be on top of it. And same thing on the podcast side of things is going to be on the website and on the podcast. Any news, if they release some sort of finalist list, whatever, we will be talking about it here on the podcast and over on the website, HeelToughBlog.com. As I mentioned, going to put out a list of guys. I have 15 on the list. Now, this ranges from some of those guys that I put in a category of home run hires. There's other guys that are more attainable that'll have their tiers. And then you'll have the incredibly outside the box names that I will throw in there as well for you guys. Those are ones that you hope you don't have to get to, but you never really know. So keep an eye on the website. That one should be up tomorrow for you guys. Of course, Carolina basketball getting ready to play here in just a few moments down there in Maui. So we're going to have you covered with all of that stuff as well. It is an action-packed week on both the website and on the podcast side of things. We are recapping and previewing every game of the Maui Invitational for you guys. What an exciting game last night for Carolina, storming back against Dayton. Now, what can they do tonight against the Auburn Tigers, a team that did the exact same thing last night to the Iowa State Cyclones? We're going to have you covered with that. And whoever Carolina plays, whether it's in the third place game or the championship game, all on the website and on the Four Corners podcast. You can get that wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you subscribe to both that podcast and the Heel Tough Blog podcast, especially if you are someone that is listening to this podcast right now. So once again, we encourage you, check that website, especially with everything that's going on right now. Check that website every day. Wake up. That's the first thing you do if you want your Tar Heel news right then and there, whether it's football, basketball. We have you covered at HeelToughBlog.com. But that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the podcast. I want to thank Josh for hosting with me. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels. And thank you for everything that you've done for this program, Mack Brown.